All right, some of you have been wondering why I've done nothing so far but make enchiladas. Well, this is why right here. I've been building up to this recipe. This is the final boss. And it only made sense to do all the enchiladas in a row to get to this one. I can make other food besides enchiladas and Mexican food, but I wanted to do it sequentially for this recipe. Now the other 3 enchilada recipes I've made, they're all great. They're all wonderful. They all have their place. I love all 3 of them. But this recipe right here, for the final boss enchiladas, is not just my favorite recipe for enchiladas. It's not just my favorite recipe for Mexican food. It is my favorite recipe, period, for any types of food. When these enchiladas are done right, they are my favorite thing to eat in the whole world. Now it takes a little bit more work than the other enchilada recipes I've made, and it takes a little bit more time, but the payoff is absolutely worth it. These are my favorite things to eat, period, when done right. Keyword, when done right. Big if, because there's a fine line between doing it right, where it's awesome and heaven in your mouth, and it can be a big disappointment if you don't do it right. Now I make these every year on Christmas and Memorial Day, but for the sake of this video series, I'm making them tomorrow as well on October 5th, 2019. And I'm starting tonight. I'm getting a couple things out of the way tonight. So if you think you're ready for it, this recipe will blow your mind. It just has to be done right, and that's why I have this video. So let's get started with the ingredients. As with the other 3 enchilada videos, corn tortillas, largest you can find, yellow or white doesn't matter. Romero brand, king size, large, yellow, 30 count. You're gonna need salt and pepper, basic ingredients. Fresh garlic, preferably fresh garlic like this bulb right here. Yellow onion. This is a big yellow onion. I usually buy it in the container already chopped, but they didn't have any, so I'm gonna have to go through the effort of the yellow onion. All-purpose flour. Crisco is back, Crisco this week. Chicken stock, not chicken broth, chicken stock. You need a quart of it. Chicken stock. Oil for frying. I've been using peanut oil, but this week it's gonna be vegetable oil. Doesn't matter, you just need something to fry the tortillas with. Ground cumin. It doesn't matter if it comes in a bag like this or in a bottle. It doesn't matter, just ground cumin. Cilantro. Might be optional for you, but not for me. I love cilantro, and I can smell it coming out of the bag. It smells so good. The cheese this week, 100% sharp cheddar cheese. Now in the past, I've kind of warned about sharp cheddar because it doesn't melt that well, but it doesn't really matter so much for these enchiladas. The flavor of the sharp cheddar is necessary here, and it really brings out the flavor overall for the enchiladas. Now I got a pound of Tillamook sharp cheddar, and then I got 8 ounces of Cracker Barrel extra sharp cheddar. Like I said in past videos, don't buy the stuff in the bags. If you're gonna go through all this effort, you might as well buy the stuff you grate. It's so much better. And last but not least, by far the most important ingredient of this recipe, you have to get this one right. This ingredient will make or break your enchiladas, period. If you do not get this one right, it will be a massive disappointment. And that is New Mexico Chile Pods. Now I bought the pods and I'm gonna dry them out, roast them, and grind them down myself, but you can also buy the powder. But I warn you, most of the powders I've seen do not meet the standards. And what you're looking for is as dark of a red color as you can find. I mean, these are so dark, they're almost like black, almost. It's a dark purplish red brown raisin color right here. That's what you're looking for. I bought these at a Mexican grocery store because the ones that I saw at Walmart and the ones that I saw at Kroger were not dark enough. This is the El Guapo brand, and they sell this brand at Walmart too, but I'm guessing it's a different distribution because these are so much darker of a red color than the ones at Walmart. You need the dark color because this is where the flavor comes from for these enchiladas. If they're not dark enough, you get a very mild, almost tomato-like flavor, and it's like you're eating a manicotti and not an enchilada because it basically tastes like tomato sauce if it's not dark enough. And to me, that's very disappointing. And I've had that happen a couple of times before where I've made this recipe with not dark enough chili peppers and it just tasted like I was eating a manicotti. If you want a tomato sauce flavor sauce on your enchiladas, just use tomato sauce. That's not what we're aiming for. We're aiming for a earthy, robust flavor here, and that's what these chilies bring. And the darker, the better. New Mexico chilies, not California, not Guajillo, New Mexico chilies. These provide the perfect balance of flavor and heat for this recipe. They're not hot, they're not gonna burn your mouth, but you still need the heat in there to make this dish properly. Like I said, you can buy ground New Mexico chili powder in bags like this cumin bag, but the ones I've always seen are too red. They're not dark enough. You can go ahead and use that at your own risk, and it might turn out good, but to play it safe, because for me, I only make these 2 or 3 times a year, I get the pods to make sure I'm getting them dark enough and then grind them down myself into powder. And that's what I'm gonna do tonight. I'm gonna make the powder out of these pods, and I'll show you how to do it. One ingredient I forgot. I know I just did the most important ingredient, the chili peppers, but you need a pound of ground beef as well. Fat content, up to you. So the first thing you wanna do is preheat your oven to 250. Not very hot, but all we're gonna do is toast it to make them dry so you can grind them easier. Because right now they're still pretty moist, I guess would be the right word. They kind of feel like raisins almost. Not 100% dried out, and that's what roasting them in the oven does. Dries them out to make them easier to grind down. So what you wanna do is go to the sink, get yourself a trash can nearby, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the seeds from inside the pods. So all you do is take the stem off like this, you can throw that away, and then just dump the seeds in the trash, shake it good, make sure you get them out of there. And if you really want to, you can run them through the water and get some more out that way, which is why I do this by the sink. But you're just trying to get all the seeds out. You just want the brown red part of the pod. They can be pretty stubborn to get out, but once you get them out, just put them in a container of some sort, and then repeat the process for the rest of them. And one thing you don't want to do is touch your eyes. When you're done doing this, wash your hands and then you can touch your eyes. Otherwise, it's going to burn. These peppers aren't dangerously spicy or anything. You know, they're not going to like cause you to, you know, break a sweat eating them and stuff, but there's just a perfect amount of heat in them to make it good and not overwhelming at the same time. So just repeat that for all your peppers. When you're done deseeding these pods, what you want to do is take a baking sheet. You don't have to grease it. Just take a baking sheet, spread them out over the sheet. And the oven is ready. So just put them in for start at 10 minutes and go from there. You're just trying to roast them to make them brittle. After the 10 minutes is up, go ahead and take them out. And they'll be very fragrant. That's what you're looking for. It's hard to describe what they smell like, but if you've done this enough times like I have, you can tell you have a good batch of peppers by the fragrance after you toast them. They smell perfect. If they don't have any fragrance at all, or a very weak fragrance, then you didn't get a dark enough pepper. This has a very strong fragrance right here, and it's awesome. So what we're gonna do now is grind them down. Now, what some people will do is they won't even do this. They will take the peppers and reconstitute them, which is fine. If you want to Google how to reconstitute these peppers, go ahead. But I like to do it this way, make them into powder, so I can use the powder later on for other applications. But they should be nice and brittle, like, see how it's crunching? That's what you want. I'm grinding these down using a magic bullet blender, but if you have a food processor or a coffee grinder, that's probably a better choice. But I don't have either, so that's why I'm doing it this way. And you don't need to grind it down that fine. You still want to grind it down into a powder, but you don't have to worry about being perfect. Just grind it down enough, because we're going to blend this again later on tomorrow. That should be good enough. Pour it out. Don't worry about the clumps. Like I said, we're going to blend it again tomorrow. But it does have the perfect smell, in my opinion. A little bit toasted, a little bit burnt, but that's good. And this powder can be stored forever. It won't expire or anything, so if you want to keep it around and use it for other things, that's ideal. So the only other thing I'm going to do tonight is chop this onion, which, like I said, I'm going to do off camera, so I'm not crying like a baby when I do it. So until tomorrow, I will see you then. Man, I could barely sleep last night because all I could think about was making these. So the first thing you want to do is brown your ground beef. You got to do this first. Don't think you can do this later. Make sure you break it up nicely. All right, and when the ground beef is done browning, you want to take it off the heat and drain it, but don't throw the drippings away. Save them. Put the beef in a strainer and let the drippings drip off into a bowl. Man, the TCU game got moved to 11 because of rain. So I forgot to peel my garlic, so I'm doing that right now. So get your 6 cloves of garlic, like I have in this bowl, and peel them and mince them. So take your drippings and pour it into a pan and let the oil heat up. And then when it's hot enough, you want to take some onions. I just grab a handful like that, maybe a little bit more. And we're gonna brown them in the fat from the beef. And you want to saute them until they're, a clear color. Something you kind of go by feel with. While the onions are cooking, we can make a spice blend. So our spice blend is going to be about 2.5 teaspoons of salt, a half teaspoon of black pepper, 2.5 teaspoons of ground cumin, and then the chili powder, but I'm going to hold off on that. Okay, these onions look to be about ready. So when the onions are ready, you want to add your 6 cloves of minced garlic. And then just saute them for about a minute. Maybe not a minute, but until they are, cooked and fragrant. You'll be able to smell it pretty quickly and pretty good when it's ready. In the meantime, get whatever you're going to blend with. I'm using this, and pour about a cup of the chicken stock in there. All right, you can take that off the heat. And we got our chicken stock. Then we can pour in our spice blend. And then we can pour in our powder. So you can use anywhere between 1/3 of a cup and a 1/2 cup. I usually go the full half, but the more you add, the hotter it's going to be, but I like it a little bit with a kick. And then you want to add the contents of the skillet here, the onions and the garlic, into the blender. Just take it and blend it into a nice red paste. Go ahead and preheat your cooking oil in a skillet over here to fry the tortillas with, and then we're going to start on our red sauce. The red sauce. What we're going to do is make a roux, and we're going to use Crisco this week as the fat and flour, of course. So it's going to be 3 tablespoons of Crisco or whatever oil you're using, and then 3 tablespoons of flour. So I'm going to get my flour aside here. So turn on the stove to about, on a scale of 1 to 10, about a 4. Medium low, I guess. And we're going to heat up our oil, melt it down. And when the Crisco is melted, you can add the flour. And then we're going to stir it with a whisk. And what we're looking to do here is create a roux that is a peanut color, a peanut brown. We're looking for a peanut brown color, and it takes quite a while to get there. I'm not saying it'll take like half an hour, but it's going to take a few minutes to get to that nice peanut color that we're looking for our roux. So just whisk it around and keep stirring it, let it bubble. Man, I just realized that my lapel microphone fell into my shirt, so I don't know how long it's been there for. So if I have any bad audio in the past, I apologize. Okay, that is the color we're looking for right there. And when it looks like that, we can add the chili mixture to the mix. If I can get this open. Woo. Stir that around, and it smells good. It smells great. And then we can add the rest of the chicken stock. Just stir it as you pour. And then you want to add about half of the ground beef. Not all of it, just about half. If you add too much, it'll absorb too much of the sauce, and it'll be too thick. And then just stir this around. You can turn up the heat a little bit, and you want to heat it up to boiling. All right, when this starts boiling, and we can let it simmer for about 30 minutes. And then we can move on to frying the tortillas and grating the cheese. And I guess you can go ahead and preheat the oven to 375. All right, this recipe calls for 12 large corn tortillas. And I've been doing this the past 3 weeks, but just in case you haven't seen it, what you do is you take a tortilla, place it in the oil, fry it for 10 seconds each side. You're looking for the tortilla to become not crisp, but just, cooked, I guess would be a good way to put it. Place it on paper towels to dry, and then repeat. All right, when the 30 minutes is up for the sauce, take it off the heat and just set it aside like I have right here. And in the meantime, we are going to take a baking dish and heavily grease it. As I've said every other week, if you don't do this, you're gonna have a casserole and not enchiladas. And if you're okay with having a casserole, then you don't need to grease. Otherwise, you need to do it pretty well because these will stick. And now we're gonna start rolling. A little bit different this week. So get yourself a plate. I'm putting on gloves because A, it's messy, and B, that is hot. But get yourself a plate to prepare on. Take one of your tortillas, put it in the sauce, flip it over. Just need to cover it, you don't need to dunk it or anything. Then take some cheese, put it down the center, and then some onions, put it in, and then roll it up tight. And then place it seam side down in the baking dish. And repeat. Okay, and when you're done rolling them, what you want to do is take the sauce and just spoon it over the tortillas. Man, this sauce smells really good, and it's a perfect dark red color. And then take whatever cheese you have left, if you have any left, and you can just sprinkle it over the top, like I'm doing. Same with the onions. And when that's ready, you can put it in the oven for about 15 minutes. Oh man, this looks great. This looks awesome. Wow. So what you want to do to top it all off, just sprinkle some cilantro. Moment of truth. Absolute perfection. This is probably the best batch I have ever made. Absolute perfection. That whole process took me about 2 hours, but it's totally worth it. If you can get the right color in New Mexico chilies, these will be the best enchiladas you can possibly make. Trust me. Perfect. Well, that wraps up this week of my game day cooking, and that's it for the enchilada videos. Won't have a video next Saturday because I'll be out of town, but October 19th will be my next film session. Don't know what I'm gonna make yet, but we'll see. Until next time.